So last time we talked about differential reinforcement of alternative behavior, Dr. A, where you are able to decrease a problem behavior while at the same time increasing a target behavior, getting the best of both worlds. Today we're going to talk about the flip side of that, Dr. O, differential reinforcement of other behavior, which is another supercharged way of getting rid of a problem behavior while reinforcing, in this case, other behaviors. So if that sounds good, this is the video for you because I am Dr. Igor Yurichevich and this is behavior modification. Let's go. All right, so this is our continuing look at differential reinforcement. So once again, the name is right there on the tin. We are going to be using differential reinforcement. So if you need a refresher on what reinforcement is, feel free to check out this video right here, how to use positive reinforcement effectively. If you are at all shaky on what negative reinforcement is, look at this video right here. What is negative reinforcement? We mentioned last time intermittent schedules of reinforcement. So if you need a refresher on that, you can check out this video right here. And if you're interested in the effects of intermittent schedules of reinforcement, which are sometimes involved in differential reinforcement, check out this video right here. And also today we are going to talk about intervals. So if you need a refresher on time sampling techniques and what a interval recording actually is, check out this video right here. But if you've done that and you're ready to go, let's get down to business. Oh, and by the way, all links in the description. So today we're going to continue our look at differential reinforcement. Last time we introduced Dr. A, differential reinforcement of alternative behavior. And today we are going to take a look at his brother, Dr. O, differential reinforcement of other behavior. So let's get back our working definition for differential reinforcement, specifically what it is not. So we're going to go back to Cowdery et al. And their study on the effects and side effects of DRO as treatment for self-injurious behavior. And in this paper, they mention that differential reinforcement does not involve extended interruptions of ongoing activities, example timeout, contingent removal of positive reinforcers, example response cost, or presentation of aversive stimuli, for example, punishment. So once again, this indicates one of the reasons why differential reinforcement of other behavior is so widely used, because it doesn't have a lot of these negative drawbacks, such as it does not include extended interruptions of ongoing activities. So the learner can continue to engage in particular activities. It does not involve the removal of positive reinforcers. As we mentioned last time, reinforcers are not reduced, they're shifted. They're taken from a problem behavior and shifted to another behavior. In this case, spoiler alert, they're going to be shifted to other behaviors. And then finally, it doesn't include the presentation of aversive stimuli. So there is no punishment procedure in differential reinforcement. It's an extinction and reinforcer procedure, so you don't have to present those aversive stimuli. So that's what we're going to be taking a look at today. Again, none of those aspects of it, behavior change. So what is differential reinforcement now of other behavior? Who is this mysterious Dr. O? Well, differential reinforcement of other behavior is when you reinforce any other behavior. So the way that you do that is that reinforcement is provided only when a problem behavior does not occur during a specified time period. So the difference between differential reinforcement of alternative behavior and differential reinforcement of other behavior is that for alternative behavior, a different behavior was chosen and that was reinforced. For differential reinforcement of other behavior, any other behavior is fine so long as the problem behavior does not occur during a specified time period. That person earns a reinforcement regardless of what they're doing during that time period. So as long as that problem behavior is absent during a time period, then the reinforcement is delivered. So whatever other behavior they're doing is fine. They can still earn those reinforcements. So this once again operates as a concurrent schedule. So the other behavior is reinforced again on this dense schedule of high quality reinforcement. And the problem behavior is placed on an extinction schedule. So we remove the reinforcement for the problem behavior, put it on extinction, and we reward any other behavior. And that reward is delivered after a certain period of time where the problem behavior does not occur. So there are a number of reasons why Dr. O is effective, why differential reinforcement of other behavior is effective, and it might work by one of the following processes. So it could work as an abolishing operation. That is, it could work because the reinforcer is actually getting delivered, and that reduces the motivation for the problem behavior. So if the problem behavior was there to get the reinforcer, and now the individual can earn reinforcement for doing anything else, that could deliver the reinforcer and thereby reduce the desire for that particular reinforcer, thereby reducing the motivation for the problem behavior. It could operate due to extinction. So the problem behavior no longer gets that reinforcement. So it just leads to a decrease via extinction. It could be due to punishment effects, because when that target behavior occurs, that interval gets reset and that interval starts up again. So you are delaying your reinforcer. So that is negative punishment, where that reinforcement is being taken away. It's being delayed every single time that that problem behavior occurs. So that could be a punishment effect that leads to a decrease in the problem behavior. And then it can also just be due to adventitious reinforcement. So other behaviors might be accidentally reinforced during that other behavior period, and then that just simply displaces the problem behavior. So let's take this and put it into some concrete terms so that we can use an illustration to illustrate some of these ideas. So let's say that we have a college student, Jordan, and she's got a problem. She's got a problem behavior. She frequently checks her phone while she's trying to study. So she wants to reduce this behavior. So what Jordan says is, she says, all right, I'm being reinforced by looking at social media. I'm being reinforced by checking my phone. So I'm going to use that as a reinforcement for other behavior. So to reduce this behavior, she puts it on a differential reinforcement of other behavior. If she can go 15 minutes without checking her phone, she's going to earn 5 minutes on her phone checking social media as a reinforcer. So notice that in this case, she's taken the problem behavior and the reinforcement for that problem behavior. Checking her phone allowed her to access 5 minutes of, for example, social media time. And what she's saying now is that as long as she doesn't check her phone for a 15-minute period, she can earn that 5 minutes of social media checking on her phone. So she's not getting rid of the behavior completely, but now she's not reinforcing grabbing her phone and checking it during study time. She's reinforcing any other behavior during study time. And then if that 15-minute interval expires and she hasn't checked her phone, then she has earned herself 5 minutes of social media time. So how might this actually help to decrease? What is the mechanism that might decrease her desire to check her phone all the time while she's studying? Well, this might lead to an abolishing operation. So she's getting to check her phone and look at that social media every 15 minutes. So for 5 minutes. So that might decrease her motivation for checking social media. So if she tries to go an hour, that motivation is just going to build and build and build, and she won't be able to do anything else. But if she's regularly getting an ability to check social media every 15 minutes for 5 minutes, that will reduce the motivation for checking her phone during those intervals. It might go through extinction as well. So previously, checking her phone gave her immediate reinforcement. She would check her phone, she would go onto social media, and she would start scrolling. Now, however, if she checks her phone, she does not reinforce by social media. So hopefully she can, if she grabs her phone and starts opening it, she says, no, I'm not going to go on social media, puts the phone back down. So that is no longer being reinforced. So that might go through extinction. There's also a punishment effect, a possible punishment effect. So if she does check her phone, well, that resets to 15 minutes. So she might have been only like 3 minutes away from receiving that 5-minute cell phone break. But now she's pushed it back another 15 minutes again because she checked her phone. That's a response cost. That's punishment. So it could decrease checking her phone via a punishment procedure. And then also it could just be some advantageous reinforcement of other behaviors. So during the differential reinforcement of other behavior interval, she might start taking notes, or she might start sketching out her ideas. And while she's taking notes, the interval ends and she goes and she checks her phone, making phone checking now reinforcing taking notes. So because taking notes was occurring during the end of the interval, now taking notes was reinforced, and now that will occur more frequently, and maybe that will displace the behavior of checking her phone because now she's being reinforced for taking notes. All right, so that's the idea of differential reinforcement of other behavior. So again, you are putting a problem behavior on an extinction protocol, and as long as you don't do that problem behavior during an interval, as long as you do any other behavior during that interval, you will receive a reinforcement. But that brings us to a question. How do we implement this differential reinforcement of other behavior? How do we use that interval? Well, it turns out there are 4 different ways that you can implement that particular interval, and it has to do with how you combine the types of interval. That is it a fixed interval or is it a variable interval? And the reinforcement delivery contingency, is it a interval? I'll explain in a moment. Or is it a momentary interval? So is it a interval time sampling? That's a better way to put it. Interval time sampling or momentary time sampling. So for this, we're going to have to go to multiverse versions of Dr. O. So here we have the 4 faces of Dr. O. So these are the 4 different types of differential reinforcement of other behavior. So let's start labeling some of these. So first and foremost, they are all differential reinforcement of other behavior. However, the ones on the left, they are fixed. And what that means is that the interval where the other behavior occurs, that's a fixed interval. So if it's 10 minutes, it's 10 minutes every time. In Jordan's case, if it's 15 minutes, it's 15 minutes every time. Every session, every trial, every interval is 15 minutes. On the other hand, on the right, we have variable intervals. And these ones, the interval is randomly set. So on average, it might be 10 minutes, but sometimes it'll be 12, sometimes it'll be 8, sometimes it'll be 15, sometimes it'll be 7. On average, it'll be 10 minutes, but it's variable exactly how long that interval is. So we have fixed intervals on the left, where the interval is the same time every instance. And then we have variable intervals on the right, where the interval is on average a certain amount of time, but it can vary around that particular time in each different trial. So we have fixed and variable, and then we have the criteria of whether or not the reinforcement is delivered if the behavior was absent during the entire interval, or whether the behavior or whether it's reinforced if the behavior is absent when the interval expires. That is, when the behavior is being checked. So in this case, we have a fixed interval differential reinforcement of other behavior. So this is FI-DRO. And in fixed interval differential reinforcement of other behavior, reinforcement is given if the problem behavior does not occur at all throughout the entire set time period, throughout the entire fixed time period. So if you have a 10-minute time period and you're on a fixed interval differential reinforcement of other behavior, that problem behavior cannot occur at all during that 10-minute time period. On the other hand, we can have, not on the other hand, but similarly, we can have a variable interval differential reinforcement of other behavior, or a VI-DRO. And in this case, again, the behavior cannot occur at all during the problem behavior, cannot occur at all during that interval. So if it's an 8-minute interval, throughout that entire interval, you can't have the problem behavior. If it is variable and it's a 15-minute interval, throughout that entire interval, cannot have the problem behavior. So the problem behavior has to not occur throughout the entire interval on these interval differential reinforcement of other behaviors. There is another version though, and these are the momentary differential reinforcement of other behaviors. So on a fixed momentary DRO or a FI-DRO, these are getting a little weird, FMDRO, that sounds like a late night rock and roll station. So if you are listening to FI-DRO, so if it's a fixed momentary differential reinforcement of other behavior, that means that reinforcement is given only if the behavior is absent when the interval expires. So if for 10 minutes, once you're trying to reduce a problem behavior and your fixed momentary differential reinforcement interval is 10 minutes, that means that when that interval expires at the 10-minute mark, if that problem behavior is not occurring, you get reinforced. Now notice, you can have the problem behavior during the interval so long as it doesn't occur when the interval expires. That is a momentary differential reinforcement of other behavior. And if you're thinking critically and you're thinking to yourself, well, wait a second, that's really, really easy in a fixed momentary differential reinforcement of other behavior, that's really easy to cheat and to get around. You're absolutely right. But it is useful in certain situations. It's much more effective if you're doing a variable momentary differential reinforcement of other behavior, or a VI-DRO. And in this case, the reinforcement is delivered if the behavior is absent at the end of that random time interval. So you don't know when the time interval is going to expire, but as long as you're not doing the problem behavior when the interval expires, you are going to get reinforced. So that one's much more difficult to circumvent and cheat. And we're going to talk a little bit about that later on when we take a look at the guidelines for using DRO effectively. And that is an amazing segue, because next we're going to talk about the guidelines for using DRO effectively. So let's start off with guideline number 1. You want to set your initial differential reinforcement intervals so that it ensures frequent reinforcement. So that initial interval should be short enough that the individual can experience success early and often and earn that reinforcement. So for example, let's go back to Jordan. We're going to stick with Jordan for this video here, and we're going to go over her examples. So Jordan, again, she's frequently checking her phone. She puts herself on a DRO schedule. If she can go 15 minutes without checking her phone, she gets 5 minutes of social media time as a reinforcer. If she checks her phone during that interval, she's got to put it back, and that interval resets again. So in this case, this is a good choice if Jordan can do 15 minutes. So first, you want to make sure that you can actually do the behavior so that you can receive reinforcement. So this is a time that Jordan said, you know what, I've done this before. I've gone 15 minutes before. So first off, Jordan can do 15 minutes. Secondly, this differential reinforcement of other behavior interval of 15 minutes with 5 minutes of social media as a reinforcer will allow Jordan to get 3 reinforcers per hour. So she chose an interval that she can do. So if, again, Jordan can't study for an hour straight without checking her phone, then don't choose a 1-hour interval for your differential reinforcement of other behavior. Choose something that can be done consistently. Choose something that is short enough that she can earn those reinforcers frequently. And then you can gradually shape them and into longer and longer intervals and gradually fade the reinforcement. So eventually, Jordan might gradually shape her intervals from 15 minutes to 17 minutes to 20 minutes to 25 minutes to half an hour. Maybe she'll get it all the way up to an hour. And then also, maybe she'll start fading her reinforcement from 5 minutes to 4 minutes to 3 minutes to 2 minutes, all the way down to maybe just 1 minute. So now she's studying an hour and she's getting reinforced by 1 minute, but don't start there. Start with something that you can do. Start with something that you can get reinforcement early and often. 15 minutes, pretty good choice for Jordan in this situation. All right, number 2, do not inadvertently reinforce other undesirable behaviors. So this is one of the pitfalls. This is one of the traps of differential reinforcement of other behavior. And because differential reinforcement of other behavior does not require a specific replacement behavior, sometimes you can reinforce behaviors that are problem behaviors in themselves. So for example, back to Jordan. Let's say that she, in her study period, in that 15-minute interval, where again, she is just going to get reinforced for not picking up her phone and checking social media. So as long as she's doing any other behavior during that time, she's going to get reinforced. Well, what if during that time, Jordan begins planning the content that she's going to post once her interval is finished. So instead of studying, instead of taking notes, she starts, writing out a plan of, okay, I'm going to make a comment on this post, and I'm going to check out this person's social feed to make sure, and I'm going to like some photos, and I'm going to do some engagement. Those behaviors are going to get reinforced, because if they're present at the end of that interval and the reinforcement is delivered, then they're going to be accidentally reinforced, and they're going to replace the phone checking behavior. But again, you've replaced it with things that are not beneficial in this case. So you have reinforced problem behaviors. So one of the ways to get around this, the solution for this, is to basically make a list of problem behaviors. So do a differential reinforcement of other behaviors, but make a list of the problem behaviors. So picking up your phone, problem behavior number 1. Planning out social media content, problem behavior number 2. Writing down what posts you're going to put, problem behavior number 3. So any social media related behaviors, you can include them as a response class, as a list, and then those are the problem behaviors that you are now going to avoid. All right, number 3. To be effective with a differential reinforcement of other behavior, you want to gradually increase that differential reinforcement of other behavior interval. So gradually increase it to extend the periods that you need to do other behavior in to earn that reinforcement. So methods for doing this, again, Jordan would eventually want to get maybe to a full hour of studying before she rewards herself with some social media time. She starts off at 15 minutes, and maybe she can increase in her next study session. So let's say that she started 15 minutes on a Monday. Now she's coming back on Tuesday. Well, she can increase that either with maybe a constant time increase. So she's going to add 1 minute every single day that she studies. So the next day she's up to 16. On Wednesday, she'll be up to 17. On Thursday, she'll be up to 18. So you can do a constant time increase for the interval. You can do a proportional increase. So you can increase the interval length by, for example, 10% each session. So on Monday, she did 15 minutes. On Tuesday, she did 16.5 minutes. That's 10% more. On Wednesday, she did 10% more of that and added another 1.65 minutes to the session. So you could do a proportional time increase, or you could do a performance-based increase. So Jordan could take a look at how long did she study per interval in her previous session. And let's say that in the previous session, the minimum time interval that she spent was 15 minutes. But let's say that occasionally she just got into it. She just got into the groove, and she was like, oh, you know what? Like, I know my interval's expired, but I got to finish this problem, or I got to finish this page. And she ended up going 20 minutes. Well, in that case, she now knows that she can do 20 minutes. So she would want to take a look at her previous performance and choose something that is above the average of her previous performance. So she knows it's challenging, but below the maximum. So she knows it's possible. And maybe she'd choose an interval like 18 minutes. Bottom line is, whatever method you choose, increase that interval gradually. Don't go too large too quick. Otherwise, you run the risk of putting that other behavior on an extinction paradigm. You stay right there, microphone. All right. Number 4, extend the application of this differential reinforcement of other behavior to other settings and other times of the day. So once your behavior improves in a single setting, then transfer your behavior to other settings, other natural environments, homeschool, work, wherever else you might need this behavior. So let's say that Jordan begins with the studying in her study room. So she is able to reduce the phone checking during her study time in her dedicated study room. Then she might say, well, you know what? I've done this in the study room. So now I'm going to implement it in my bedroom as well. So if I ever have to study in my bedroom, I'm going to start implementing this differential reinforcement of other behavior in the bedroom. And then I'm going to implement it when I study at the library. And then I'm going to implement it as much as possible when I study at school. Not sure what the cell phone policy is in her class, but whatever it is, wherever she can start implementing this, do it in a controlled environment first. And then once you have success, start moving it to other settings, and also start moving it maybe to other times of the day so that it can be now applied generally in all environments in your life. All right, number 5, Combine differential reinforcement with other procedures. So again, we saw differential reinforcement of other behavior with other procedures. So again, we saw this with differential reinforcement of alternative behavior. It also works with differential reinforcement of other behavior, works best when it's combined with other behavior reduction techniques. So for example, back to Jordan, she's on a differential reinforcement of other behavior for checking her phone. So any other behaviors that occur during that interval gets reinforced as long as she doesn't check her phone during that interval. But she can also combine that with other procedures, such as punishment. So she can have reprimands, response costs for checking her phone behavior. So checking her phone might actually extend her study session time. So she was planning to study for an hour, and if she starts checking her phone, now she's got to study for an hour and 15 minutes. Or she could say, you know what, if I check my phone during an interval, then I don't get dessert tonight. So you can combine this differential reinforcement of other behavior with, for example, a punishment procedure, and that's going to be more effective than just differential reinforcement of other behavior alone. All right, and then the last one to be effective at differential reinforcement of other behavior is to recognize the limitations that this procedure has. So when you are, again, implementing this, when Jordan implements this, differential reinforcer of other behavior might accidentally reinforce other problem behaviors. So in this case, you want to make sure that you expand that definition, not just checking your phone, but also planning to post media content, working on jokes that you're going to post, whatever it is. So expand the definition of problem behavior to include all the problem behaviors that you want to decrease. Also be aware that momentary differential reinforcement of other behavior. So we talked about momentary differential reinforcement of other behavior, especially fixed momentary DRO. That could simply reinforce brief pauses before the interval expires. So Jordan might be engaging with her phone for most of the time, checking social media, and then at the 14-minute mark, she just kind of senses, okay, you know what, I'll go back to studying, I'll pause it for a little brief period of time, and then she earns her reinforcement because, again, momentary, just if gets reinforcement if it's not occurring, if the problem behavior is not occurring when the interval expires. So in this case, you would not want to use a momentary differential reinforcement of other behavior procedure. Use interval DRO, use a variable interval DRO, might be one of the best, in order to avert this problem behavior. And then lastly, differential reinforcement of other behavior can sometimes be too demanding or intrusive if the intervals are too short. So you really want to choose a short interval that you can deliver that reinforcement early and often and consistently, but not so short that it's intrusive. So for example, in Jordan's example here, a 30-second interval for studying would just be too difficult to implement, and it would just interrupt Jordan's studying all the time. So you want to ensure that your intervals are realistic for implementation and that the intervals don't interfere with the very behavior, that other behavior that you're trying to reinforce. All right, so that was our look at DRO, Dr. O. So what we covered today, again, covered a bunch of stuff today. So we covered what differential reinforcement of other behavior is. We took a look at the mechanisms that are behind differential reinforcement of other behavior, such as abolishing operations, extinction, punishment effect, advantageous reinforcement. And then we took a look at the 4 types of differential reinforcement: fixed interval DRO, variable interval DRO, fixed momentary DRO, and variable momentary DRO. And then the 6 guidelines for using differential reinforcement effectively: setting the initial DRO intervals that ensure frequent reinforcement, not inadvertently reinforcing undesirable behaviors, gradually increasing the DRO interval, extending the application of DRO to other settings and times of day, combining DRO with other procedures, and recognizing the limitations of DRO. So be sure to join me next time when we take a look at intermittent schedules of reinforcement. So we talked a lot about those. We had some reviews from previous videos, but we are going to go even deeper, do a deep dive on intermittent schedules of reinforcement. But until then, stay frosty, stay functional, go modify some behavior. All right, so many of you might have noticed that I am now motioning with my left hand, and that is because when I did my introduction last time. I'm Dr. Igor Ichvich, and this is not behavior modification. This is a huge microphone. So it's left hand now, and we'll see how that goes.